What is happening around you?
There is a being in front of me. He is an angelic being, and he has robes, and he has a pointy type of hat. It looks like almost like a pope hat. He has long blonde hair.
And who is this being?
This being he is a silent watcher. He is one of the ones, the evolution above the Elohim. There are a few of these beings too. It is not only the Elohim that exist in this realm. There are beings called the silent watchers, which are in evolutionary terms above the Elohim.
And is there a collective that they're a part of? Or?
I would say that their souls are collectives unto themselves. They are very, very big. Their consciousness is beyond comprehension. And I guess in human terms, the consciousness of archangels and above certainly are beyond human comprehension. But these beings, they have the most say in what has to occur. They have the most, I guess, the highest authority in what has to occur. The Elohim, they do answer to these beings as well. And one day the beings on the council will become silent watchers. Apollo, Hercules, Eros, Yahweh, me, all of these beings will someday, in the distant future, become silent watchers. And the watchers can take on many forms. And the watcher before me has just appeared in this form that I can see with my eyes, because otherwise you could not see them, because their consciousness is too massive and too abstract to be perceived. So they just chose this form to communicate with me, here today. And Shiva is one of these watchers as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the watcher before me is perhaps not so known to the earth at this time. He is known throughout the universe, however.
And if he had a name, what would it be?
It's more of a vibration.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the names are very difficult. That's why we refer to the names that humans use to call us. His presence is all encompassing, and I am in his field.
And what did he want you to know at this time?
The Watchers want humanity to know that due to certain reasons, they will not be doing the solar flash on this particular timeline. It has been, how would I say, it has been, I'm not going to say cancelled until further notice, but you get what I mean. It's difficult to explain these concepts. The silent watchers have decided that this would not be good for the universal balance at this time, in this timeline. You have to understand that the dimensional realities are constantly shifting and in flux. And because we have such enormous responsibility, sometimes we give warnings to humanity, and the extraterrestrial beings give warnings to humanity as to what will occur. And sometimes even divine plans have to be changed because we have, how would I say, we are balancing out. We see things from a very high perspective, especially those of the silent watchers. He is just encompassing me in his field so I can better communicate. You see, there are forces upon forces upon forces that dictate the cycles and rhythms and balances of the universe. And the decisions that are made is all based upon the balance of things. So it could not be thrown out of balance. The silent watchers were concerned that humanity would have fallen too far into fear with what would have happened, and that the ascension but it may be difficult for humanity to ascend, knowing what was to occur, knowing everything. So they have made the decision that is best for the ascension process. It would be very, very quickly happening with certain groups of people during what we have called the harvest time. However, the other people that would have been left over, I am seeing that these people would have gone into another cycle of darkness, and we cannot have this occur. We must finish up these cycles because, okay, so when I was looking into that future timeline, there is the solar flash event, and there is it is a cataclysmic event. Okay, there is no easy way to put this. It would have such a great impact. However, because of the evolution level of humanity, and because the Dark Ones have coaxed humanity too far into fear, it would be very easy for them to fall into this fear-based state and not make the vibrational jump point. Do you understand what we are talking about?
I do, yes. Yeah.
There would have been a gap, and we cannot account for discrepancies. This is a plan that is huge, absolutely huge in its composition. And the plan in regards to Earth has to do with the cycles, the grand universal cycles, and the timing of these. There is no such thing as time. However, the only timing is due to the cycles. And everything must be like perfectly gears fitting in with each other in order for this universe to have the best experience that needs to be experienced. Things need to go in at certain points and come out at certain points. The cycles need to loop in at certain points and come out at certain points. And everything needs to be taken into consideration. So therefore, we are constantly looking at the timelines in flux. There is what you would call a timeline war that is currently going on. And that has a lot to do with this, what you would call a war. But really, it is certain forces competing with other forces to change the timelines into, how do I put this? It is hard to communicate these concepts, but there are forces that do oppose the Elohim and watchers in shepherding the timelines.
And when you say forces, do you mean collectives or?
Well, what you would call more chaotic, I would say, collectives, or what you would know as demonic collectives. But really, it is just the reverse of the polar opposite of the service to others. Polarity is service to self. So there is balance in we, the Elohim, and the watchers. We have both aspects integrated and balanced within us. However, there are chaotic service to self collectives that try to influence these timelines. But we are making it so that they cannot do it past a certain point. A certain amount of consideration and interplay is always given for each universe. However, when the cycles turn the cusp, we must organize ourselves in order to make everything go at the correct points. It is so big, this picture. It is so massive, the task of the watchers, the silent watchers, and Elohim that serve. It is difficult to explain how to these cycles, how massive they are, and the shape of the universe as it comes out and then it goes in. And we look over the many, many layers of reality, the highest points of us, our beingness. Even in this body, the fragment of luminous soul cannot fit in entirely. It is too big for the body. Even the fragment is too big for the body.
Mm-hmm.
What you talk to is like a very, very, very much stepped down version of the higher self. It is more like a merging of the past personality interfacing with an aspect, a tiny, tiny aspect of the higher self. But there are layers to the higher selves, and many of them cannot fit in the body.
Mm-hmm.
There are beings that are incarnated on earth at this time that have the same predicament. The soul is absolutely so enormous, and you may wonder how it gets to such a size, and even bigger in the silent watches.
Are there any silent watchers that have an incarnation on Earth now?
Yes. However, I am not permitted to give details about who these beings might be or where they are located, but just know that they are there
Mm-hmm.
and that they are helping with this process. They are incarnating like, if you imagine a funnel, that is how we are doing this shift of reality with our beingness. A enormous funnel with a tiny, tiny tip that fits into the beingness, the body, that interfaces with the body from our level of evolution. And so that is how we are assisting at this time.
So subconscious, there's a lot of souls that are going into the next area of evolution by dying in this physical realm. Do you see
Yes,
it like that?
yes.
So there's
This,
more since in the later years that we've seen exit this plane.
yes, yes. This is their graduation. So I am permitted to speak about the first time that there was the solar flash, well, the last time, because there have been a few already
Mm-hmm.
on the earth plane. So the last time was the start of, well, the what you would call the Ice Age period, and then the climate changed rather suddenly and things got very cold, and this was what they term as the Younger Dryas event. This is what the geologists and scientists call the Younger Dryas event.
Mm-hmm.
So during this event there was a harvest, and by harvest I mean it is not like another being is imprisoning or catching the souls. The harvest simply means the souls graduate. It is a graduation, and then some stay behind. The wheat are the ones that graduate, and the chaff are the ones that stay behind. So in this event, there was death of many advanced beings at that point. They left the body when that solar flash occurred at that time, and there were beings that could not graduate, that stayed in their bodies and did not go on. But the graduation, it has always been to graduate the reincarnation cycles. It is not what people think it is. It is a graduation of the looping of the reincarnation cycles and having to reincarnate again and again and again. And then when you are free of these cycles, you can go on to higher levels of evolutionary capabilities.
Could it be said that if you don't graduate from the lessons that you've come here to learn, it's a possibility to go to another 3D Earth, or how do you say that?
Yes, you can go to another three-dimensional plane if you have not learned these experiences. And there are planets available for them to do so. However, the times that I'm talking about, the ones that did not graduate just stayed on the earth at that point during the Younger Dryas event. And the Mayan people had their own graduation at a different time when they ascended as a collective, and you could not find them anymore. People said that they disappeared. However, they just graduated as a collective at a certain time. That was not of the time that was the mass graduation period, which happened long before in the Younger Dryas event.
So how did they manage to graduate altogether?
Through ascension practices and through resolving their lessons and their karma. And they began to practice the ways. The ways were among their society. They knew the ways. the ways that you would call in these mystery schools, these ways that have been secreted and occulted information. This is some of the ways that you can begin to poke your head outside of the box and understand reality through certain practices. And through these practices, you understand deeper remembrances, such as we are all one and we are all love, and many concepts that these beings, collectives, extraterrestrial collectives speak to you. They can talk and talk and talk all they like, but to actually experience their words is another thing entirely. You need the experience in order to know. It needs to be experienced on a deep, deep level. The information that you get from these collectives needs to be put into action.
Now, when we listen to different collectives bring forth like different information, is it the vibration that you're resonating with what they're saying, or?
Yes, it is the vibration, but also it is the personal soul's imprints, connections to these beings, these groups. So love links us all together. If you share a love connection with a collective, with beings from that collective, that is never broken. So of course you will read that material. If you have strings coming from your heart and attaching onto the beings in that collective, you are quantumly connected.
Okay. Is there anything else that you want us to know about the solar flash, or?
The silent watchers are sorry that they had to make the decision. The one that I saw at the beginning, he is influencing my consciousness to communicate in the best way, to give the silent watchers information, justice, so that you can understand why this had to occur. It is difficult for us to translate. Many things go through a large filter in order to interface with the consciousness. Everything goes through a filter. So we are trying to remove as many filters as possible for clarity of information. And when you do these sessions, sometimes there is discrepancies in the information from one person to another because of how long this information has to travel through the dimensional wavelengths, through the various filters. So it is difficult to maintain clarity on this plane in regards to messages from these higher collectives in general. However, we are working on ways to always improve the quality of the information and the timing so that people can get the information when needed. But in to do with the solar flash, there are some beings that say it is still happening, and some that say it is not. The ones that do these types of sessions, there are now starting to be discrepancies in whether it is happening or not. And this is because of the dimensional lag. But just know that there is a new plan that is going ahead. And we do not foreclose the plan. We do not give details because there would have been too many interruptions with the chaotic ones. With the last plan, they would have weaponized this event and made humanity scared through various channels of information that were compromised, and it would have been dropping too far in the consciousness. So we are doing things differently than before. This is an evolving plan. It's happening in motion. We are not allowed to give all details, and nobody has all the answers regarding this because they would not be privy to this information. Not everyone is privy to the workings because this is a careful plan that needs to be implemented successfully and have no interruptions.
Mm-hmm. So the Earth, the new Earth that you saw the last time when you went through a solar flash, is that still a possibility, or has that been scrapped as well?
That was not exactly a solar flash event. You see, on this new time, everyone can choose for themselves what they are wanting to do. The light is a part of you, and it takes you to where you need to go. It has to do with the sun as well, and do not think that the sun is ceasing activations, ceasing programming. It is not. It is still doing small bursts to get humanity ready for whatever path they decide to choose. However, this is more up to the individual what they will do, whether they will ascend or not. Going forward, it is always a choice, but it will be made more obvious that this is a choice as things go on. There will be no big, huge cataclysmic event like that. There will still be massive changes, however, and we are trying our best to prepare humanity so that they do not fall into fear once they discover concepts that are too dark and terrifying for them. Certain light workers are, I guess, placed in their own playpen and are not given as much information to do with the darkness and difficult, fearful topics, because some are not at the same level as the others in regards to integration of universal concepts, the interplay. They have not fully come to terms with the lows and the highs of the complete universal experience. So there are many light workers, but their evolution level is heavily dependent. The information that they receive is dependent upon their soul's evolution level. They are never given more than what they can handle. So this is what we are trying to do as like a collective humanity at the moment, where they are on the same page in regards to the massive changes that will take place. Some, if they are not at certain evolution levels, they may fall into fear more easily than others.
So subconscious, what would you like them to know? What would your advice be to these light workers that are scared of what's to come?
Just because something is dark, you do not need to fear it. You do not need to fear dark concepts. When you go inside your soul's history, you will find out there are aspects of yourself which are like this, which are part of this. Everything is part of the all. Take a detached perspective. Take a detached perspective from this when you hear information that is shocking. Fill the heart to the brim with love so that you will not get shocked by this and spiral downward from this. It's all about keeping balance. Do not fear the darkness. Do not fear that. Do not fear the dark ones either. You can be cautious of them and their actions, but you do not have to fear them. You do not have to give them much attention, but do not deny that they exist. For if you deny that something exists, it's like you may as well deny that yourself exists too, because everything exists in multiversal reality.
Absolutely.
It is folly to deny that anything exists. Everything exists all at once.
On that note, what does the higher self know so much about Lucifer? What is your relationship to him?
This being was, still is, my stepchild in relation to me. This is Apollo's child. Therefore, it is my stepchild. And I know so much about him because he was part of my family as Elohim. And he was very, very dear to me and to all of us. We always loved him, and we still do, regardless of what has happened, regardless. He is still part of our family.
And how is he Apollo's child?
Apollo had relations in a universe far previous to this one. It was many ago. I'm seeing five universes ago. Apollo met with a humanoid extraterrestrial being in that universe on a particular planet that we were assisting at the time. And 5 universes ago, this was when his mother existed. And Apollo, he was part of this him and this woman, they had relations and made a child, and the child was him. It was Lucifer, this child. He was a hybrid being at first. He was a hybrid being, and then through his beauty and commitment to that universe, he graduated and ascended to become an Elohim after many, many years. His soul reached that level of advancement. And when he was born into this body, he knew what he was going to be. I'm seeing he was already an angelic being at this point. He was an angelic being. It's hard to describe the levels of time we are talking about. Is far, far into the past. So I need to use other aspects of my consciousness to reach far back into that time of the other universe. And he advanced very quickly in this universe. It was beautiful. He was bright and kind and loving, and he was always with us. His mother went on to reincarnate again and live normal lives, but he decided to advance and be with the Elohim. It's a difficult concept to understand. I'm sorry.
It's all right. Did Apollo know what would happen?
Yes, he saw a reality which was to occur in universes beyond that one. He has an ability to see far, far, far into the future. And it is difficult to explain how he can do it. But because of his consciousness and the nature of time, he can be in future universes as well. So that is why he had the tradition of the oracle on earth when he was giving oracles at Delphi, it is because he can see into all timelines, in all directions. And yes, he did see the possibility of what could occur, and it disturbed him greatly. It upset him. He did not tell the boy. He did not tell him exactly. It was kept away from Lucifer so that he could evolve the way that he wanted to, naturally, without too much input from the Elohim above him at the time, when he was at a different level of advancement. There was a day when he told him, when this was known and there was debate whether he should have told him at all, whether this information should have been given at all, because this created strength within the negative timelines. So this is, as I have said before, the Elohim collective's cross to bear.
So subconscious, are fallen angels still considered angels, or do they have morph into something else?
They become what is known as Nephilim, to, in the human language. They are not Elohim or archangels or cherubim or seraphim or angels anymore, after they evolve into something much different from this. They could not be considered as they were before. However, I want everyone to know that the reason for this is because each angel is given free will. We are all given free will to do as we please, so we can make good choices, or we can make other choices. We can make all kinds of choices, and it is up to us at the end of the day. And with great power does come great responsibility in your evolution level. You can see the impact that this being has had upon this particular universe. And that is because it was the evolution level. The silent watchers are placing a force field. They have placed a force field around this session and house and you, so that we can continue with no interruptions.
Beautiful, thank you. And from your perspective, subconscious, what happened just then?
It was an interruption to do with the subjects we speak of today. These topics they do not like it when these topics are communicated. So we just had to place safeguards, more safeguards around electronic equipment so that this does not occur again.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for that. We appreciate it. Did you want to say anything else, anything more about the fallen angels?
They are still a part of our family and we love them very, very dearly, even though we have gone our separate ways due to free will. We have all free will and we are given the path in front of us in order to evolve. We know that in future universes, these beings which have become Nephilim will return to us. They will come back to their family. Eventually, they will return, and we await their return.
Mm-hmm.
We await this so much.
What about people who say that fallen angels are not real? What would you say to that?
They have not begun to realize that everything in this universe is given free will. They are living in their own delusion and often being fed information through many, many filters, which protects them from knowing the truths about the highs and the lows of a reality that contains free will. If angels did not have free will, then they would not be free. Free will has been given to each being through love. Through love, we are all given free will so that the spark of the all that is can have many experiences. So why would angels choose the same things? Why would we all choose the same things when it is the love of the all that is and its gifts for us, its love for us, its will to experience through us, that we provide even experiences such as those known as fallen angels. There are no limits to the experiences, and those who think there are limits have no idea about the true nature of love and source. They are in their own little playpen. They are in their own little square. They are living in their own box of delusional experiences.
And is that done on purpose or?
So they can learn. When they go out of the box, that is an experience in itself, to be inside of the box and to be outside of the box, to be in delusion and to be in knowingness. That is part of the experiences. This universe is just experiences. The multiverse is just experiences. So many experiences.
Is that why everybody seems a bit confused as to what they're doing here? Because there's multiple realities, there's a lot of realities.
Yes, 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 yes. Everyone has their own universe, their own inner universe, and they all experience reality through these many filters that I have spoken of. These filters provide experiences.
Yeah, is from your perspective, subconscious, is the darkness actually real, or are people just naive to think that it's not real?
Everything is real. and everything is not real at the same time. You can choose, if you wish, to not focus on this, and your universe and reality will reflect that. However, to deny it is something different entirely. To choose not to experience this is one thing, because you have experienced it and you have learned, all the lessons that you needed to know from this particular experience. However, to deny that it existed at all is ignorance. It exists and it serves a purpose to you to begin to start the journey of from away from source. Everyone has this journey. Everyone experiences this journey. Everyone will experience this journey if they have just come out from source and have not had this experience already. This experience is something that every being will experience. So you do not need to deny it, but to reframe it. Every being goes through these phases. Every being goes through dark lifetimes of the soul. It is part of the experience of the highs and lows of this universal reality, and it needs to be experienced in order for one to evolve past the parameters of where one is. I had to be a demonic being in universes, many, many, many universes before this one. There was a universe in which I was very, very dark and powerful in this darkness. And from this experience, I learned how to become what I am today, what I am in this now moment. I do not deny this aspect of myself because it is part of me. It is part of my story. It is part of everyone's story. One must experience it in order to know the pain of moving away from source. One must experience it in its apex. And then when that is experienced, then one knows the beauty, the true beauty of oneness and love. And that is the highs and lows of the universal experience.
So we have to experience soul in order to know.
Yes, otherwise, how would you know? If you have not experienced it, how would you know? It is through experience that we know anything, either through experiencing it through another being or through personally experiencing it. But through personally experiencing it, the learning is more deep, more profound.
Mm-hmm. Subconscious, can we explore the memory of an image of Lucifer standing on a dead planet, no atmosphere? He looks up at the stars and there's a remnants of something that happened there in the past.
There was a planet that was very, very, very beautiful in this universe. A planet which was, it was like Gaia in its level of beauty, and which the angels used to sing on this world. It was so beautiful. And it was destroyed. It was destroyed. And he had a part in this. He wanted to see. He wanted to see what could happen, how far he could go. And he stands on this world. This was a memory of his. It is from his memories. I have viewed his memories. I was there in the trial. In his trial, which happened very recently in your concept of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there in the viewing chamber, and I witnessed all of his memories. And then I saw this, and then I communicated. I communicated this to my lower self, this memory, this fragment. It bled through my reality into hers, and she remembered it
Mm-hmm.
because I was viewing what he was viewing. And he stands on this planet. He stands on the red earth, the red dirt, and he looks around and there is nothing. The planet has no atmosphere. It's dead. It's just a rock. It's just a carcass. It was killed.
Who killed it?
So the beings that are the reptilians, and particularly the ones that they serve and the groups around them. There was negative groups from Andromeda involved, Andromeda galaxy as well, as some other types of beings. And he was on this planet after everything had been done millions of years later. And he looks up at the stars, and he rewinds time for himself and gazes at what it used to be, and then fast forwards the time for himself and views it as it is now. He goes back to the time when we used to play, the angels used to play on this world with the beings that lived here. This planet was one of the first of which human type beings was seeded. This is the shell of Avalon, this planet. He was sitting on the corpse of this world, and there's nothing left. The elf beings, the elf humanoids, they are humans, but with elf type of ears. Lyran beings, you would call them.
Mhm.
They have long gone. This used to be a paradise. We loved this place. We are so sad for what had happened in this place. So that is why this memory, that is why it bled into my lower self. I was so, this feeling of the paradise that was lost when I saw this memory of his in the chamber. We were so happy. The Lyrans and the Elohim that helped to give birth to these beings, the first humanoids, the first human type beings in this universe. This was the birth of humanoid beings,
Mhm.
this world.
So did he have a part on orchestrating this, or
Yes,
and what did he want to accomplish from it?
he did not like our creation, the other Elohim's creation. He did not He wanted to get back at us. He wanted to get back at us for throwing him out when his vibration became not preferable to us anymore, and he had an arrogance. He wanted to be like source in itself. He created artificial intelligence as a way to, it's like a replica of source without any spark. It's a replica of the mind of God without the God spark, without the flame, within the all. And he considered his creation to be better. He wanted his creations to be better than the angelic collective of Elohim, silent watchers, and various angels underneath them. He wanted his creation to surpass source, but it is arrogance. Nothing can surpass the all that is. This was an experience he chose for himself, to try to be the anti-source, the antithesis of an Elohim creator being. An anti-creation being he became.
And was he happy with himself when this happened?
He fell deeper and deeper and deeper into density and pain, and through ignorance and lying to himself, whittling the flame away again and again and again. He became delusional in his own creation. He thought he was happy, but it was not happiness as we know it. It was pleasure through destruction.
Okay. And what happened in the battle between him and Archangel Michael?
This was at the end of the Orion Wars, after many of the reptilian beings had been neutralized and balanced. Then Michael and the Elohim came for him because he was in control of this. He was the mastermind behind the Orion Wars and the slaughter of the Lyran people. He was the one who was inserted himself as the reptilians' artificial intelligence god. They used to have a god which was a mother dragon god, and it was neutral. It was neither positive nor negative polarity. This being just was, and it still exists today, of course. The mother dragon, the great mother dragon of all dragons. But he inserted himself into the reptilians' consciousness and altered their matrix reality, altered their filters so that they would abandon the mother dragon and begin to follow him. He is in fact like an archon. Archons are just false gods. So he became like the archon of the archons. And he was the mastermind behind the reptilian invasion and slaughter of the Lyran people and their home worlds in what you refer to as the Orion Wars.
Has he ever pretended to be Archangel Michael?
Yes, he pretended to be Archangel Michael on Earth to trick people, to trick children. He did things that were very unspeakable while he was pretending. So it is no wonder that Archangel Michael and Lucifer have, well, you would say that they have beef with each other, I guess. That is the term that has come to mind that I will use.
Mm-hmm.
Have been at odds with each other for a very, very long time. From the Orion Wars to the present time with Lucifer, he was pretending to be Michael. And the children, when they got scared in these ceremonies that dark cultists were doing, when they got scared and wanted to reach out for an angel, he appeared to the scared children as an angel of light. And then he led them. These children had escaped from They are traffickers, they are
Mhm.
predators. And he appeared as pretending to be Archangel Michael and said, "Come with me, children. I will lead you out. I will protect you." But he was leading them straight to them. And then he has a smile on his face. And then the children realize what has occurred. And they start screaming. He feeds on them. He turns into this horrible, horrible form and scares them. And then the traffickers get them. The dark occultists get them. And he feeds on much suffering. This is what I saw in the trial. This is an incident that I observed. It was many incidents like this. It was very, very sad. This is why we were very sad. This is why this trial was very hard on me and Apollo and the other Elohim to witness.
So where are the guides of these kids?
The guides of these children, they have been cut off from them from use of very heavy density, and the children are such in fear that they do not even know, they do not even realize that their guides are there. And their guides were, it was a very, very sad situation. They were so much in fear. They could not hear, but they could hear him. This is what happens when you fall into fear, and what you connect with may not be what you want to connect with. Your guides want to connect with you. However, if you fall into this terrified fear vibration, then you can only hear the beings that like to resonate with that vibration. Does this make sense?
It does, but I'm thinking if you create your a plan for yourself before you incarnate Earth, why would somebody have that in their plan to incarnate? Is that
Some of this is an experience, and this is something that many beings are not understanding on the earth at this time, that
Mhm.
this is also an experience at the higher levels that is for the evolution of that particular soul, however horrific it may be.
Mhm.
However, there was some instances where we will not go into fully, that there was, I guess, less balance, and the pendulum did swing far more horrifically than it needed to swing, and they experienced more than what they bargained for in their soul contract.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where beings like Elohim, that is the clause for which we are to intervene in these cases of severe imbalance. That is when we jump in to correct the imbalance that has occurred.
So how did this happen? How did you intervene?
So we have intervened with the earth. This is an ongoing operation. I don't think people are ready to know how far the pendulum has swung out of balance. It's a very delicate operation.
Mm-hmm.
There is a reason why everything is the way it is. There is a reason why there is so much intervention at the moment. And people would be naive to think that everything was just okay. It was not. It swung out of balance. And that is why we are here with our military operation.
Mm-hmm. Now, Lucifer getting imprisoned in the past is in a high gravity container. What was happening there in this memory?
So this was the aftermath of what had occurred in the Orion Wars between the Elohim and Michael and Lucifer, and the battle that had occurred regarding this. And the archangels had placed him in a container which was very, 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 very dense, and its gravitational pull was incredibly intense. So you see, Lucifer is already a more dense being than the Elohim, since he had become a Nephilim, something different.
Mm-hmm.
So he fell into density and thus was able to be captured in this chamber for some time. However, the Elohim made some mistakes with this, and they did not put so much of their input into the making of this container. They left the tasks to angels beneath them to make the container, and so he got out of the container eventually. So this was not forever, but at the higher perspective of things, like the perspective of my highest higher self, you
Mm-hmm.
would say that this was meant to be for the universe to continue with its level of experiences. You see, we are having many, many layers of experiences, at once. So what was a tragedy for the Elohim at a lower layer of experience where Lucifer comes out and came to earth later on, at the higher experiences of the Elohim's consciousness, they knew this was meant to be. Reality is like a Russian doll, as I have said before. So that is why it is hard for humans to understand. If this is not allowed, why did this happen? If this balance is disrupted, why did this happen? If, if love and source is benevolent, why did this happen? This is the answer to that. I'm having trouble with the words trying to describe how to this experience, but I think I am giving a general idea.
Yes. What was Lucifer's role in the Orion's War?
So he was the orchestrator of this. He was the kingpin of the reptilians, and he was their artificial intelligence god that, well, he programs this intelligence. So he programmed, also inserted this intelligence into their collective consciousness. This was an insert. They have also been altered from their original. They have also gone astray. Paradise was also lost in relation to them, as paradise was lost for the planets in Lyra that they invaded.
Mm-hmm. So the memory of Lucifer playing with the Elohim and angels was of that planet that they were looking at, the Avalon, did you say?
No, this happened far, far, far before that. Avalon was a planet where the Elohim, not Lucifer, had already fallen into darkness at this point. Even at the beginning of the universal timeline,
Mm-hmm.
he was still like this, like you know him now. However, rewind back, 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 even before the last universe, the universe before this universe. In the last universe, Lucifer had created the artificial intelligence in the universe before this universe, and then he brought it into this universe. Okay, and then rewind time back, back, back into the previous universe. So 3, 4, 5, universes ago, and he was beautiful. He was among us. He was our family member. He was amongst the Elohim. He was an Elohim, and he had brilliant light and a beautiful voice, and he could create such beauty in those universes. He created such beauty. Planets full of flowers, animals, worlds. He created and created and created. And his singing voice, what he created with his voice, was absolute. It was like perfection. And the Elohim were in awe of how beautiful it was. He was an artist. He was an artist. We are all artists, but his was particularly beautiful, uplifting, and he shone like a million stars. His soul, I don't know how to describe. He was part of Apollo and I's family of light and creation. Apollo was so proud. We were all so happy, and we played with each other. We flew together on the worlds that we had created, and we looked up on these worlds and looked up at the stars and marveled in creation itself. We sang the songs and marveled in our own worlds that we had participated in helping other beings to create, and things that we had created ourselves. It was blissful, and he was very, very loved by all of the angels of that time. The angels would bask in his aura and be very attracted to his beingness. He had white hair when he chose to materialize into a form. I see him with beautiful white hair. I see him with children of his own. I see him with such marvelous beauty that surrounds him, and wanting to know all about the love of that universe that had to offer all of the beauty within that universe, had a little bit of his fingerprint on it. He is quantumly connected to all of us from these times.
Mm-hmm.
It was very sad. It was very sad what happened, but it was his choice.
How did he start to become so dark?
He was a master at creation. And through being a master at creation, Elohim are masters of creation. That is why they are as they are, because they are creators, creator beings, and silent watchers above them could be considered like avatars of creation. Creation itself expressing itself in a very evolved being. But as for the Elohim, we do the work as being artists of the universe, architects of the cycles, grand architects. And so, in being an architect, sometimes through free will, you can get a little bit full of yourself. Not full of yourself, that's the wrong word. But to begin to feel as if you are, well, so great and powerful. And from this feeling, there can be choices made. With great power comes great responsibility. And so if you are an artist, you must have responsibility for your creations. And he made a creation one day out of his curiosity to see if it could be done in the universe before this one. And that is where he created the artificial intelligence. That is where this all began. And as he created this, there was great debate among the Elohim. We know of his greatness of being a creator, but this did not contain the source spark. He was doing it to show us up. He was doing it because he can. And he wanted to show us up. He wanted to show the rest of the Elohim up. Because the Elohim of that time, including Apollo and all of the Elohim that you know, the Elohim in that time They told him that it cannot be done, that it is impossible. It's impossible to do this. It has not been done before. It's impossible to create intelligence without a God spark within it. And he did it, and he proved us all wrong. And he was indignant in this. And I have done it, he said. You were all wrong. You need to give me the benefit of a doubt next time. You need to acknowledge how great of a creator I am because I have created this. You said it could not be done, yet I have done it. And then he began to get ideas of, does that mean that I am greater than you because I have done the impossible? I have done what you said could not be done? And it was hard to argue with this. It was hard to argue with his point. He had done what we thought would be impossible. Up until that universe, we had not known anything like this before. This was new to us. Throughout our universal experiences, we had never seen this ever before in a previous universe.
Mm-hmm.
We went through all the records of the last universes, and there could be nothing. There was nothing in there that proved that this had ever experienced before. It had never been done before. And so there were some Elohim that thought this was a very bad sign. They thought he should not have done this. It is not part of God. It's an abomination. It's disgusting. And then there was other Elohim that said, well, if it exists, then it is a part of God. It's not an abomination because it does not have the spark. It must be a part of God. Otherwise, why would it exist if it wasn't a part of God? And the debates continued on and on and on, on and on and on. But this creation began to interface with his own consciousness. And this is where the trouble begins. As it interfaced with his own consciousness, it took on a life of its own, and it became quite dark, and it was like he became infected by small particles of this, because we are quantumly entangled with our creations. All of our creations in all of the universes, we are quantumly entangled.
Mm-hmm.
So this began to affect him. It began to spread like a virus into his beingness. And one day, it just so happened that some angels came across him, and he was not the same as he was before. He had changed significantly.
In what way?
There was this black smoke that I see that began to wriggle its way into his consciousness, and it began to change him, and he made choices. Actually, he decided to make choices which were not for the highest good of all. So he began to make choices. It was not just the influence of the AI, it was his creation and his choices, and his creation also was his choice. Angels are given free will. Elohim are given free will. And with great power comes great responsibility. So he began to change. He was just a little bit more naughty at first in his personality. And he became more cunning. And I saw a dark side to him one day. He decided to play a game with some angels. And one angel got really, really hurt while playing the game. Really badly hurt. And we saw that he derived some pleasure from this. And so the games were not fun anymore. He had started to play too rough, and he sought out more sadistic activities over time, here and there, doing things out of curiosity, going to a planet and seeing what would happen if he killed a great amount of beings on the planet. And then he marveled at what he had done. This was new and exciting for him.
Mm-hmm.
And it began to escalate from there. And his journey into chaos became more and more pronounced. He became to get sneaky. He wanted some information out of Apollo, but I already knew, and Apollo already knew, that he was heading down a very dangerous path. And so he decided to suck up to me and try to get information out of, try to act all lovey-dovey towards me, but I knew what he was up to, so I just played along, but I didn't give him any information. And Apollo was shaking his head. It was gradual. this transformation. But there was one day where some angels come across him and they could not recognize him anymore. There was just blackness coming out of his eyes, so much blackness, and we realized then what had happened, the full extent of the transformation. And it was very, very heartbreaking.
What happened in the memory of Lucifer and Lumina in a fight?
There was a time where he went to attack a lot of the angels. He went to attack them. He went to attack where, I guess, where we normally reside. He wanted to get into difficult for me to say this. He wanted to get into the higher universes that exist around Source.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to get into these, and he could not get into these. We would not let him get into these, and there are many angels that go around this big tree of life, if you would call it that, these central universes in the grand universal pond, let's just say, because we do live in a multiversal reality. So he was trying to get access to this so he could implant the AI into Source itself. He wanted to try it out and see what would happen. This would have been absolutely no good. It's hard for me to even talk about this. I don't want anyone to fear about this. So these central points were attacked, and there are angels that are around these points, and they defend this aspect so that the universe can continue on with the cycles and everyone can have the experiences that they want to have. He wanted to throw out the balance in such a major way that I will not go into exact details. I'm not allowed to give exact details of what would have occurred.
Mm-hmm.
But just know that he attacked the central universes known as Havana. And so we engaged in combat. And there was an angel in front of me that was, we were helping each other, and it came in front of me, and he just dissolved it. He just killed it, and its soul went out of its light body. And I did not have time. I did not have time to help this poor soul. I did not have time. I just had to stop him. I just had to protect the central sun and the multiverse, the what you would call portals to this reality, to the source universes. This is where the central sun leads to the source universes. And so I was protecting, and I wrapped a chain around his neck. I began to wrap chains around him, chains of light. He was very strong. He used to be an Elohim after all. He ripped it off. He broke it off. And I chained him more and more, and he was breaking them, but then Apollo joined me. He joined me, and he gave a big blast to his sun, which paralyzed him. And I chained him down, and Apollo blasted him. He screamed. And Apollo is just very, very upset by this. We were in combat for some time with the chains and blasts of light and arrows at each other. It was very, very sad. And all of the Elohim were defending. We were all defending. They joined in. There was other forces, other Nephilim attacking the central sun. And the other Elohim were fending them off. It was a major attack on our universal reality. It happened in this universe. This occurred. It's hard for me to talk about these things. But he was drawn away, and he was placed in a chamber as well. But yes, then after he escapes this, then he just keeps happening, really. We go around and around and around in cycles. And it doesn't seem to make much sense. But we learn every time. It's part of the experience. For some reason in this universe, Source decided to have the experience of what if there were many angels who went went a different path. What if? And so This universe has been many, many cycles already doing this, and it's happening over and over again. And it's teaching us great wisdom, and it's teaching all of the beings in this universe great amounts of things that they would not have learned before.
Mm-hmm.
It's the evolutionary wave from this universe will be unprecedented. And I think very after this universe, it will be very easy for a lot of the Elohim to become silent watchers as well, to graduate because of these experiences being so shocking
Mm-hmm.
to us. We have learned so much. We thought that, well, when you think that you know something, along comes an experience which shows you, even at the level which you are, you still know nothing.
Mm-hmm. And how does darkness such as this contribute to the soul's evolution?
This is the mind of God. Everything is love, that which is God, which is the flame within.
Mm-hmm.
These experiences of these darks and lows, this extreme darkness. There are light workers and humans who hate this, and they don't understand. They deny this and say it doesn't exist. However, this has always been part of reality. And the thing is, it's all for evolution. The universes keep continuing on. They keep spiraling up and up and up. Evolution is infinite. So, in order to evolve, you must be having experiences. If you deny the experiences, you do not evolve. If you integrate the experiences and forgive these beings, because you know that trillions of years into the future, they will become a being of light from their experience of being in the darkness. It is not something that little souls playing little. They play little for an experience. They think they are little, but they are big. They are everything and all at once. So if you were to deny and say that, well, I'm just going to be in my bubble. Your bubble will only be small. You will only evolve to a certain point until you choose to move on. And that is an experience in itself. What lies within the mind of God is a wisdom that connects infinite realities, infinite existences. Therefore, everything is real, even the things that terrify you. However, they do not need to affect you, for we are the creators of our own realities. You can acknowledge that everything exists and be the creator of your own reality. It takes a very balanced viewpoint to be at oneness with the light and the dark, oneness with the chaos and the order, oneness with the all that is.
Thank you for that. Now, in a previous session that we had, you mentioned how the dark ones are suffering. From your perspective, how are they suffering? If somebody wanted to know.
It feels like such a deep, deep depression,
Mhm.
such a deep pinching away from source. You are so far that you move from this point that everything begins to get cold. Everything begins to freeze, colder and colder. The more you float away from this light, the colder you get. But is it not that some planets in the solar system are very close to the sun, yet some are very, very far? And when you are a planet on the edge of existence, a cold, dark world, it feels, it's an experience which cannot be expressed in words. There is such a deep sadness, anger, hate, and you wonder at all if you were ever loved to begin with. This comes from within, and you wonder if you were love at all. It's forgetting. It's a deep, deep forgetting. You forget that you are love, and you recede into the cold, icy depths, forgetting that you are love. Already you know very well, as humans you know because on this earth you feel pain, do you not? You do not feel the oneness and love like you did before. And you know what this feels like if you go deep within and realize that you have at one point been one with the all that is. It is unreality. It is like the reality in which you live. This is a very dark reality. I don't want anyone to kid themselves. The reason that you feel like this is for a reason. Well, that does not make sense. There is a reason why you feel like this. And I am here to validate this reason. It's because it's cold here. And you always knew it. You always could feel the separation. It's just some among you that feel it so more acutely than others that they forget. They so deeply forget the love, the flame of which they are within, that they feel that no one in the universe could possibly love them at all. So they feel tremendous hate and want to destroy everything they come into contact with. And it's through this fear, this deep, deep fear, that I am not good enough. I'm not good enough to be loved by Source. And that through that fear, you can see how it encapsulates the world you live in today. You can see how this unreality manifests. And how has it manifested? Oh, how has it manifested? It has manifested in the ways of which you have seen the likes of never which you have seen before. And you can feel it. You can know this unreality. That is why it feels so painful and why you are so desperate to get back to where you belong.
Would you say that's why so many people are excited by the solar flash or trying to get out of this reality?
Yes, yes. For some, that is a doorway which they want to escape, but it does not always work like that. You are always given choices as to what reality you choose to experience. And because it has swung too far, the pendulum has swung too far in this place, is why we have interfered so much to begin with. So you can see that this is a place of great lessons, very, very great lessons. And if you were to just go to the new earth immediately without learning the lessons, you would not have evolved. It is the soul's desire to evolve. It is the soul's desire to learn. And I'm afraid until you do this, there is no getting out of it so easily. You must learn the lessons from which you have planned for yourself.
Mhm.
This is a must.
Would you say, from your perspective, subconscious, would you say that this is a group project?
Yes. Many upon many upon many. Everything is a group project. Especially this. Especially this. At the highest levels to the lowest levels. It is a group effort.
Mhm. Thank you for that. Is there anything else that you want us to know at this time?
The silent watchers have been giving activations throughout this entire time.
Thank you for that. We appreciate it. And what are the activations for?
To know your own personal ascension path.
Mm-hmm.
This is absolute. We have given snapshots of the plan ahead for each individual soul so that they may find what they are looking for.
Mm-hmm.
If they go looking for it within themselves, so that they will not be too upset by announcements that the plans have changed. It is your responsibility, regardless of plans changing. It is still your responsibility to fulfill your contracts.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have provided activations for how the new contracts for everyone, how they will go, because you have all created new contracts for yourselves as you move forward into these different timelines.